Alright guys, so we have this explosion shape being generated, but we're not seeing any flame. The reason is not because we don't have any, it's just because on the smoke object underneath guides and visualization we're only seeing the density. If you want to see the flame, you can go to the heat. Heat is actually the flame. So yeah, and also you can go take a look at the temperature if you wanted to, as you can see here, right? And you can also go to fuel, take a look at our burning fuel, which is basically that. Anyway, so the first thing I want to fix is that visualization. So I'm going to check out everything, but turn back the multi-field. Go to multi-field, and I'm going to define the density field as density. And the density field color will be also be defined by density. And the color will be, let's try a, I'm gonna actually get rid of that white color so that I can just define the color right away here. Maybe just a darker smoke. Okay, so that's the smoke. Moving on to emission, that's actually where the flame is. I'm gonna change the emission scale to 1. Emission field will be heat, and emission color will be the temperature. Okay, and here I'm going to change the preset to black body, and underneath emission color remap, I'm going to change that 1 to 50 because my temperature is kind of like ranging from 1 to 50 or a number like that, so who knows, I'm not quite sure, but I know it's not 1. It should be much higher than 1. Again, those are just visualizations, right? They're not actually determining how things are looking like in the final render. Okay. Alright, now I see flame, I see a little fog being generated at the edge of the flame when they cool down, and I see the flame goes up. Okay. Now one more thing I want to tweak is underneath the source volume. I'm going to say, how about instead of emitting fuel all the time, I'm going to make a expression $f smaller than 12. So what this means is now, if I click on this, I can actually see the result of that evaluation. You can see it's 1, and then after frame 12, it changes to 0. So basically, we're now having fuel emitted only on the first half second of the simulation. And when that is done, we don't have fuel anymore. Now, the reason being for that is I want an explosion, not a constantly burning fire. Alright, cool. So I'm happy with its visualization now. I can probably make it a little bit harder by going to the smoke object and change that 50 to maybe just 40 or even 30, so that I'm seeing more fire. Maybe even 20, I'm not sure, but the lower the number is, the brighter it will be. Alright. So let's talk about a few things we can change here. First of all, I like the direction those mushrooms are going because I told them so using my velocity field. I want to enhance that a little bit more, so I'm going to change the scale velocity to 2. Basically, it's telling them, okay, go to that direction further. Alright. And then the fog is going up. The reason being for that is, again, when fuel gets burned, you get temperature, and also flame. When the flame, it has a higher temperature, it tends to go up, right? The hotter things goes up. Some thermodynamic thing, right? So yeah, that's the reason why it's going up. The attribute that is controlling how much it's going up is underneath the Pyro solver. Buoyancy lift. So if that number is 0, you basically wouldn't see it go up that much. It's now basically inheriting my velocity now. In fact, if I turn out my velocity here on the source, I will see nothing, just expansion. If I have the buoyancy on back to 5, it will go up. Alright, and it's go up in a different way, right? That's why I set up some velocity, so it's gonna be directed by the shape I have. Alright, so velocity back to 2, right. And let's take a look. Cool. Now I have my cool looking explosion. Not quite cool yet, but I have something now, right? So let's move on to some fine tune of this shape. One of the things I can do is I can maybe have just a little bit more fuel. The way to do that is I just simply need to multiply this result by some number like 2, so that I got a bigger explosion. Alright. Now, normally we need air resistance because that's what you need, right, in real life. So I'm going to create a drag force right here, just like the smoke one we did, to prevent them from going too crazy. Alright. Now another thing I can do here is underneath the Pyro solver, I can change the temperature diffusion and cooling rate. Temperature diffusion basically means how fast the temperature will be even out. So if you change that to like 100, just to see it, you can see now it's basically even out really fast. It cools down really fast, and it becomes smoke really fast too. Kinda want to make the smoke look brighter though, so let me go back to the smoke, change the color, and make it just a little brighter. Cool. Anyway, so if you want it to be, let's reset to default. If you want it to be maintaining more, you can change that to 0.2, so the temperature wouldn't go away that fast. It will remain at their position for longer, so you're getting tighter shape. Okay. Cooling rate is how fast the temperature is cooling down. I kinda like to make it maybe cooling down slower, I guess, so 0.6. Again, I kinda want more temperature. That's why I'm doing this, because more temperature means more buoyancy, more burning, and also more gas released to have bigger shapes. For buoyancy lift, maybe I can make it lower so it's not going up that much. Basically, the lower that number is, the lower eventually the shape will be. Anyway, so now I have this. I am going to go to the combustion and define how things are burning. The ignition temperature basically means like at this temperature, that's when fuel can burn. Now our temperature, as you can see before in the visualization here, it's 19, right? So basically it's really high compared to that ignition value. 0.1 basically means just burn it. If you change that to 1, then the temperature has to be as high as 1 to really burn. As you can see, it's actually pretty high even it's 1, because it was 19 there. What if I change that to 100? Maybe that's going to prevent it from burning. So you need 100 degree or things like that to burn. As you can see, nothing gets burned. Even you still have the fuel. If you go ahead and go to the visualization here and check on fuel, you can see fuel there. It's just not having enough temperature to burn it. Okay, so I'm going to reset it back to 0.1. I want every little bit of the fuel gets burned, so at least when there is, so revert to defaults. Now burn rate is how much you want to burn. 90%, right? 0.9 is 90%. Basically means 90% means like 90% of the fuel will be burned after a second. And so basically a very good value, I guess. Don't really have a reason to change that. Fuel efficiency is an interesting attribute. It's controlling how much of the burn fuel is actually not burned, which means they can still burn. You burn 50%, but that 50% can still be used as fuel. Basically, this value will give you more fuel. If I change that to 0.5, I should have more fuel. And I should have bigger explosion, more temperature, and bigger shapes, as you can see. Alright. So I don't really want that actually, just to show you. If you wanted to be having more fuel, you can do that. I'm gonna revert that to default. Temperature output is how much temperature you emit when you burn. So 0.25 is some number, right? If you change that to 10, this is gonna emit a lot of temperature. Basically means my fire will go up faster because, you know, the temperature is the one driving again the explosion to go up, right? That's the Beyonce thing. So of course it's gonna go up more, and also the color changes because I have more temperature. 0.25 is probably good, so not gonna change that either. Gas release though is how much gas will be released when burning is happening. The more you have, the much more pressure will be applied outwards, and you will have bigger bubbles. So let's say maybe if I change that to 50 and run it again, as you can see my bubbles are bigger because more gas are being released. Alright. So probably don't want that much. I'm gonna change that to default setting is, let's see, default setting is 50. I'm gonna go for 25, a little bit more, so that I can see some very cool big mushroom head for now. Okay, so let's say we're happy with the shape. Of course, you can change all these things to get a different shape, but I think I'm happy with that. So moving on to the bottom tabs, we have flame. The flame height will be how high the flame is. So if you change that to something bigger, you have higher flame basically. Not a big fan of it. I'm gonna say just use the default setting then. So revert to default. Smoke is how much smoke you emit. Right now I don't see much. You can visualize that again on the smoke object and check on density. That's actually how much smoke you emit, which is not that much. So I'm gonna go back to the Pyro solver and tell it to create dense smoke. Basically means it will always create smoke no matter how much smoke you already have on a certain area. It will not consider some area are occupied by smoke already. It will just keep adding density to that smoke. Source will be heat, which means it will generate smoke on the heat volume, which is basically heat here is the flame. Temperature and heat are meaning basically the same thing in English language, but heat is actually the physical flame, while temperature is more like the actual temperature. So heat here is going to be the flame. It's going to generate smoke on the flame, and when the flame is lower than 0.5, 0.2, when that field is lower than that, it will start generate or convert the flame out into smoke, and there is a blend amount. So let's say if the heat cutoff is 0.2, then when flame's density gets lower than 0.2, or when the heat is lower than 0.2, you start to see the flame changes to smoke entirely. But before that, there are 0.2 blend range, so the flame starts to become smoke gradually from 0.4 temperature or density down to 0.2. So when the heat value changes from 0.4 down to 0.2, that's when it starts transitioning from full flame to full smoke. So that's the explanation here. I'm gonna go ahead and maybe make that 0.3 so we can see smoke more. I can also earlier, and maybe that can also be 0.3 smoke amounts. I want a lot of smoke, so maybe 10. That way I will be able to see a lot of smoke being generated, as you can see here. Alright, I kind of like smoke, so just give me a lot of smoke. For those very dense, like volcano explosion, maybe that's what you want to. Alright. Maybe too much. And the gas release is probably too much. It's bubbling out too big. I'm going to change that 25 to 18 or 20, whatever. Let's take a look one more time. Just don't want such a big bubble out of the place. As you can see, I'm having a smaller bubble now. So basically this number controls how big your bubble is. Alright. Kind of want them to be spread out more, so I'm going to say, how about using more velocity on my initial velocity? So, oops, 30 is probably too much, maybe 5 in this case. That's going to allow me to see it inherit my velocity more instead of just going up. Alright. Cool. So that's basically some of the settings we can do with the Pyro solver here for combustion. You have also gas, temperature, and fuel. We don't use those too much. If you want the fuel to actually flow, you can actually check that out. Things like flamethrower or like a dragon throwing fire out of the mouth. Maybe you want that, but I don't really want that. So check that off. That means my fuel will be right at the bottom and never really moves. Okay, so that's gonna be it for this tutorial. In the next one, we're gonna go ahead and break up the shape using micro solvers. So see you next time.